You're turning 80, the interviewer says with a smile, and you've probably worked with some of the most beautiful women in Hollywood. Be honest, Tom. Do you still think about any of them? Tom grins, and his famous mustache moves like he's trying not to laugh. That's a tricky question, he says with his eyes shining. You're trying to get me in trouble, and I've spent my whole career staying out of trouble. Well, he stops for a second, most of the time. He sits back in his chair, crossing his arms with that cool confidence that made his show Magnum P.I. so famous. You know, when you've been doing this job for so long, you realize the moments you remember aren't the awards or the fancy movie openings. It's the people. The ones who walk onto the set and make everything feel special. You can have all the cameras and lights in the world, but if you don't have chemistry, you've got nothing. The interviewer laughs. So you're saying chemistry is important. Chemistry is everything in this job, Tom says. You can't fake it. Either you have it or you don't. And when you do have it, you know right away. You can feel it even before the scene starts. It's not about flirting. It's about rhythm, timing, and trust. Some of the women I worked with could change the mood of the whole day just by lifting one eyebrow. He laughs. Now, some of those scenes got really fun. Directors loved to say, "Let's do that again." And I never complained. Not even once. His smile becomes softer as he thinks back. But what made those women so unforgettable wasn't just their charm or their beauty. It was how incredibly talented they were. Professional, brave, funny. They didn't just act out the role. They made it their own. And when you're working across from someone like that, all you can do is hold on tight and try not to mess it up. He looks away for a moment, and you can see he's remembering something special. So, yeah, there are 6 names that I always think about. 6 women who made me laugh way too loud between takes, who made every scene better than it was supposed to be. They're the reason I still love this job. They're the reason I remember everything so clearly. He looks back at the interviewer and winks. You wanted me to be honest. Well, there you go. I remember all of them. Every line, every laugh, every look. You don't forget magic when you've been lucky enough to stand right next to it. Tom laughs before the interviewer even finishes saying her name. Courtney, he says, sitting back with that familiar half-smile. She was a lot to handle in the best way possible. He stops and shakes his head. You have to remember Friends was a huge hit when I showed up on that set. They didn't need me. They were already part of TV history. I was just the guy with the mustache trying not to bump into the furniture. But Courtney made me feel like I'd been there since the beginning. He laughs again. She's quick, really quick. You say something to her and she's got a comeback before you can even blink. It's like doing comedy with a jazz musician. You think you're keeping up and then she changes everything and you just try to hang on. She's that good. Then his voice gets softer. She also has this amazing kindness on camera. A lot of people don't see that in comedy shows. They think it's all about who gets the biggest laugh. But Courtney was always thinking about the whole scene, how to make it feel real, how to make it come alive. She gives you room to find the right moment. That's really special. He smiles as he remembers. The thing about our storyline is that it could have been weird. Older guy, younger woman, and the audience already loved Monica. But Courtney made it work because she played it honestly. It wasn't just a trick. It was a real connection. She made my character Richard feel like a real person, not just something to surprise people. He laughs quietly. People still stop me to talk about that relationship. That's all because of her. She created that chemistry. I just showed up and tried not to ruin it. A pause. Courtney's the kind of actress who makes a scene more exciting without even saying a word. You learn from watching that. You walk away thinking, okay, that's how you do it right. She made those few episodes some of the most fun I've ever had working. He grins again with a look of missing those days in his eyes. Every actor hopes to find a partner like that at least once in their career. I was lucky. I found her on Friends. Tom smiles when her name comes up, with that knowing sparkle in his eyes. Catherine Ross, he says slowly, like he's replaying a memory in his head. Now there's a name that deserves a moment of respect. He sits back, thinking. We worked together back in the early 1980s on the Shadow Riders. Westerns were what I knew best, but Catherine brought something different to those cowboy movies. She had this natural grace. You could put her in a dusty old saloon scene and she'd still look like she should be at a fancy art show. But don't be fooled. She was tough, smart, steady, and she could give you a look that said more than 3 pages of words. He laughs. When you're filming a Western, half your day is spent covered in dirt, pretending you're not sweating through your clothes. Catherine never lost her cool. I'd be brushing dirt off my hat, and she'd just smile like everything was going exactly as planned. She had that calm elegance that you can't pretend to have. Tom's voice gets softer. The thing about Catherine is she really listens. Really, truly listens. In a scene, she's not just waiting for her turn to talk. She's right there, fully present and connected to you. You'd look over in the middle of your line and realize she was already 5 steps ahead, bringing you along with her. That's when acting feels like a dance. He laughs again. And she's got this quiet sense of humor. Doesn't announce it, just says something that makes the whole crew laugh. Half the time I was trying to keep a straight face while we were filming. He leans forward a little, his voice becoming more thoughtful. She reminded me that being subtle can be the most powerful thing in the room. No big movements, no exaggerating, just the truth. That's what made her impossible to forget. He smiles a bit sadly now. Some actors leave their mark because of one scene, one moment that just clicks. With Catherine, it wasn't just one moment, it was all of them. Tom lets out a low whistle when her name is said. "Now, Jane," he says, grinning. There's pure elegance. You couldn't miss it, even from the other side of the set. He shakes his head, smiling at the memory. We worked together on Lassiter back in 1984. That was a really fun movie to make. A stylish crime movie set in the old days. Lots of fancy suits, smoky rooms, and that whole cat-and-mouse feeling. And Jane, she didn't play the mouse. She was the one setting up the traps. He laughs. I'd show up on set thinking I was the leading man. You know, the guy who's supposed to be in control of everything. Then Jane would walk in, stand in her spot, give me one look, and suddenly I was just trying to remember what my next line was. That's what real star power looks like. Tom's voice gets softer, the grin turning more thoughtful. Jane had this incredible combination of warmth and smarts. She could go from charming to dangerous with just one change in her eyes. That's what made the movie work. It wasn't about action scenes. It was about tension. Every scene we did together felt like a chess game, and she was always 3 moves ahead of me. He laughs with that playful spark coming back. She had this way of keeping things fun, though. Between takes, she'd tell a story, laugh with the crew, and 5 minutes later, she'd step back into character like flipping a light switch. Total professional. Then softer. Jane was one of those co-stars who made you perform better just by being there with you. You couldn't fake chemistry with her. It was either real or it wasn't going to work at all. Luckily for me, she made it really easy. He smiles, leaning forward with a bit of that famous charm. Every actor has a few moments in their career where everything just clicks perfectly. The lighting, the words, the connection. Jane Seymour gave me one of those moments. I don't forget something like that. When Raquel Welch's name comes up, Tom can't help but grin big. That slow, knowing smile of someone remembering a time when Hollywood was full of hairspray, film cameras, and excitement. Raquel, he says, saying the name slowly like it's his favorite song. Now there was someone who knew exactly who she was the second she walked on set. You didn't have to introduce her. Everyone already knew. He laughs quietly. We did a couple of projects together back when the movie studios were still trying to figure out what to do with me. I was the tall guy from TV. She was Raquel Welch. You can imagine how I felt. She'd walk into a scene and suddenly the air felt different. Everyone, and I mean everyone, paid attention to her. Tom shakes his head, smiling at the memory. She had this confidence that could throw you off balance in the best way. A lot of people only saw the glamour and beauty, but Raquel was really smart. She understood the camera, the lighting, the rhythm of a scene, and she knew exactly when to let you have a special moment and when to take it back for herself. That's not something anyone can teach you. He laughs. I remember one day on set, we were planning out a scene and I suggested changing a line. She gave me this look, not mad, just amused, and said, "Sweetheart, I've been doing this a little longer than you have." And she was completely right. She nailed it perfectly in one take. That's when I learned to just be quiet and watch a master at work. Tom sits back with that playful twinkle in his eye. She was magnetic. You couldn't fake that kind of presence. Couldn't resist it either. But what I respected most was how professional she was. No games, no big ego, just complete control. You'd walk away from a day working with Raquel thinking, okay, that's how you're supposed to carry yourself. He smiles, almost sadly. People like to talk about her as an icon, and she absolutely was. But for me, she was also a lesson in how to have presence. When Raquel Welch looked at you in a scene, the whole world felt like it shrunk down to just that moment. You don't forget that kind of focus and power. He laughs again, his eyes soft with memory. Yeah. Raquel made an impression on me, the kind you still think about even decades later. Tom laughs the second her name is mentioned. Not a polite laugh, but the kind that just bursts out before you can stop it. Goldie, he says, shaking his head and grinning widely. Now there's trouble wrapped up in sunshine. He leans forward, his eyes lighting up with excitement. We never actually made a movie together, and that's one of Hollywood's biggest missed opportunities if you ask me, because Goldie Hawn and we would have had such a great time. She's got that special spark that can charm anyone. A mix of mischief and warmth that sneaks up on you before you know what's happening. He laughs. You'd be halfway through a scene trying to remember your lines, and she'd let out that laugh. The one that feels like champagne and fun chaos, and you'd forget everything you were supposed to say. Goldie has this rare ability to make everyone around her feel lighter and happier. She could be talking about boring stuff like taxes and still make it sound like the best story you've ever heard. Tom shakes his head, feeling nostalgic. I used to watch her movies, like Private Benjamin, Overboard, and Foul Play, and think, that's how comedy should be done. She made comedy look easy, which is actually the hardest thing to do. Timing, rhythm, showing real feelings. She had it all figured out perfectly, and she could steal a scene without even trying. You just blinked and suddenly she'd taken over the whole moment. He grins with that playful smirk coming back. If we'd ever worked together, I think the crew would have had to stop filming early. Too much laughing. Too many ruined takes from cracking up. I've got a lot of respect for anyone who can make humor feel that alive and real. Goldie could walk into a room and change the whole feeling in there. His voice gets softer now. That kind of joy is really rare in this business. Goldie didn't just act in movies. She made you feel good about being there, and that's the kind of energy you always remember. Tom leans back when her name is mentioned, and for the first time he doesn't smile right away. He breathes out, thinking deeply. Meryl, he says finally, with quiet respect and admiration. Now that's the North Star right there, the best of the best. He laughs softly, shaking his head. I've never worked with her, not even once. But every actor who's been lucky enough to work with her says the same thing. She changes you as an actor. You walk into a scene as one person and leave it as someone different. He stops, then grins. I've seen her on screen 1,000 times, and every single time I find myself thinking, how in the world does she do that? She completely disappears into her character. You don't see the acting technique. You just see the truth and realness. That's what the rest of us spend our whole careers trying to achieve. He laughs, low and friendly. I remember watching Out of Africa when it came out in theaters. The way she moved through that film, quiet, powerful, not wasting a single movement. It made you believe the whole story before anyone even spoke a line. That's not just acting. That's something else completely. That's pure grace. Then his voice gets soft again with a note of real respect coming through. There are a lot of beautiful and talented people in this business, but Meryl, she's in her own special league. Every gesture, every pause feels completely honest and real. She can make a whisper feel louder and more powerful than a gunshot. He smiles, looking a bit sad and wistful now. If I ever had the chance to do even one scene with her, I'd probably forget every single line I'm supposed to say. But I'd do it in a heartbeat because standing across from Meryl Streep, that's the kind of moment you'd remember and carry with you for the rest of your life. He laughs, shaking his head one last time. I've worked with legends and amazing people, but she's the one who reminds you why you fell in love with acting in the first place. The day she walks onto your set, you know you've really made it in this business.